This episode of This Printed Thing is sponsored by PCBWay. Did you know that even if you don't have a 3D printer, you can still get your stuff 3D printed by PCBWay? They can also do injection molding, CNC machining, and they can even help you design and fabricate boards for your electronics. Use PCBWay for all of your prototyping needs. Prototype the smart way with PCBWay. Hey YouTube, welcome to another episode of This Printed Thing. My name is Mike, and over the last several years, 3D printing has become very popular. There are a lot of manufacturers making a lot of different types of 3D printers, each with different features. Some are Core XY, some are bed slingers. With this popularity of 3D printing, there are a lot of designers making great designs that you can download and 3D print right in your own home. But more and more lately, it seems like all the good models that you can download are locked behind a paywall. But here and there, you can still find some gems that you can download for free and print for free, and then have the things for free. My wife has been asking me to 3D print a treasure chest for my kids. So I went on to Thangs and I found this 3D printable treasure chest designed by Pirate Life, and I have to say the treasure chest itself looks very impressive, and it's free to download. But when you open the 3MF file, this is what you get. You get a lot of pieces, and I mean there are a lot of pieces. If I separate out all the pieces, this is what it looks like. And if I highlight all the pieces, there are 49 pieces total. And guess what? There are really no instructions on how to put this thing together. Now, I've gone through the comments and lots of people have asked the designer for instructions, and he keeps coming back with, "Oh, don't worry, it's really easy to put together." Well, we're gonna find out how easy this thing is to put together, and succeed or fail, you're gonna see the whole process. Well, most of the process. I mean, I'm not gonna make you guys watch the boring bits. But this is gonna be one of those videos where I start the video wearing one set of clothes and you see me end the video wearing a different set of clothes, because this is gonna be a process. But hey, if I succeed, I get a treasure chest. So as you guys have seen, I'm running Bambu Studio because my printers are all Bambu printers, the Bambu X1-Carbon. So the first thing I'm gonna do here is separate all of these pieces onto different plates. I'll sort them by what would be a wood part and what would be a metal part. And a lot of these pieces I'm going to have to reorient, like for example this. I mean, it's not going to print like that. It would be better if it were placed on a side like this. That will print a lot better. So we're going to do that. And I'm going to be doing this mostly by looking at the pictures and just kind of deciding what's going to be wood, what's going to imitate metal. So here's one problem that I see on the X1-Carbon. This right here, this piece is gonna be too big. Now the designer says that things can be resized, so why don't we make everything at 90%. So if I scale this to 90%, it fits beautifully, as will everything else. So we'll try that. So we have everything on plates. Now, I'm not going to say that my orientation is the best, but this is just how I oriented it. But 10 plates. Now I want to see if we just select everything and go 90%, everything is sized appropriately. So now we'll just go through and rearrange everything. Well, that sucked. And there we have it. Now everything is organized in such a way that it's printable. So now we're ready to start printing. Now I'm really only going to be using 2 filaments for this project. One, for the wood, I'm going to be using Amolen's Walnut wood filament. Now, this filament actually has wood particles mixed into it. That doesn't make it any stronger. In fact, it probably makes it weaker. But for something like this, we're not really looking for strength. We're looking more for aesthetics. And I think this filament will do the trick nicely. For the metal parts, I have some of Sunlu's PLA in silver. So I think these 2 filaments will make a good combination for this project, so let's get started. So one of the problems I'm having as I'm going through each of these plates and slicing them is that there are a lot of, let's say, inconsistencies, right angles, or things that should be right angles that really aren't right angles. For example, like, let's take this one for example. When we slice it, you'll notice there's a line in the top of these and that's because there are angles that just aren't quite 90-degree angles. But it looks like they're supposed to be, but they're not. This causes a problem in one of these pieces, this one right here, which looks like it's supposed to be the rear hinge for the top of the chest. So when you slice it, everything looks good, except you get this warning that it says it has floating regions. Well, yeah, I mean, there's some bridges, but there's nothing like floating. But then you look underneath, and if I bring this all the way down to the first layer, so this side of the object, whoops, here, let's do this. This side of the object, these walls, which should be flat or flush with one another, are not. They're about 1 layer difference. Attention to detail here. To top it off, I had a problem where this did not have, it had non-manifold, what do they call it, non-manifold walls or whatever, which basically means that it wasn't closed off all the way. So I'm gonna try to fix this. Looks like it's not just that. No, it is. But anyway, I'm gonna try and fix this by using Bambu Studio's cutting tool. So if I come back here, I don't want to do this because I'm sure that there's some dimensional accuracy that's supposed to be had here, and I don't know if my cut is going to throw that off, but I mean, it's not going to print like that. Not well, at least not on that side. So let's use the cutting tool here. We'll pull it down to as far as it will go. I've pulled it down to a height actually below. Let's do it at 0.2 millimeters, see if that will, 0.3 millimeters maybe. That'll give us the whole bottom here. And we'll keep that. We don't even want to keep this part. So we'll perform the cut. Okay, so the cut has been done. And if I slice it again, hopefully that cut's not going to screw things up. I still don't really know how this goes together. Still says it has floating cantilever. Okay, let's see if we can figure out where that is. It's at least not at the bottom. So that's good. We're probably going to have to support this here. But yeah, I'll get this part printed and then we'll see if we can get this stuff put together. So I'm here in my front room because I have this nice spacious coffee table on which to assemble this thing. And know that I have 9 children living at home, so if you hear background noise, well, it's probably them or my dog who's over there scratching at the window because she sees something outside. But here we have 49 pieces, all the pieces that printed in this project. For some of it, I'm going to be using 3D Gloop, which is an agent that will partially dissolve the plastic so that it chemically bonds together. I have this here, and oh, I forgot one thing. When using 3D Gloop, you want to use the proper PPE, so I have some nitrile gloves here for that, because you definitely do not want this stuff on your skin. Let's get started. All right, so we have a clean slate here. All of our pieces are spread out, sort of. So as these pieces have come off the print beds, I have kind of been studying them to figure out how they go together. And for the most part, I'm pretty sure I've gotten it figured out. It really isn't that complicated. However, again, not everyone can be expected to just guess at how this thing goes together. It's not a puzzle. But let's see here. So we're gonna start with the walls of our box. And I'm gonna go ahead and put on some nitrile gloves right now in preparation for knowing I'm gonna have to use 3D Gloop. All right, so here we go. So this is the hinge, the back piece, and this is the part that I told you about before where it sat on the print bed like this, but it had some angular inconsistencies to where it was not skew, or it was skewed slightly, so I had to shave off 0.3 millimeters off of this side so that it would sit flat on the print bed. So I don't think that's going to be an issue here, but we'll find out. So the side, these are the walls here, and the side with this little outcropping is going to be the outside. These are going to be the ends. This is going to be the front. I'm going to face that towards me for now. And these parts just kind of interlock together like this. And you'll see why momentarily. And then this with the hinge is going to be the back. And you have these holes here in the bottoms of these pieces. Those holes are going to be for these feet. Now, my printer had a little bit of an issue with the bottoms of these feet, but it's nothing that I think is going to kill our project. One thing I will say though, I kind of tested the hole tolerances of these parts, and because of the way they had to lay on the print bed, there was some bridging for the holes. So putting these through the holes was a little bit difficult on some of them. So I used a file and just kind of filed them out a little bit to make the hole tolerance just a little bit bigger, big enough so that we could fit these in. So let's turn this thing upside down like this. And these will only kind of fit together one way. You can see that this peg here is not square, so it's not going to go in this way, definitely not going to go in this way. So I'll have to grab the right corner to go on the right corner of the box. So it's going to go in just like that. And this is one that I believe I had to grind out the hole with a file. I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit of 3D Gloop on the inside here just to hold that on after I push it in. So I'm going to do that on all 4 of these. And one thing you want to note before you put this on though is that we're going to need to run these through here and into the corresponding holes on the other side. These are going to hold the slats of the floor of our box. So it can be a little bit of a challenge to get them situated as you're putting it together. But once you get it, it's good to go. And I'm not going to bother 3D glooping that because they'll be held in place just by physics. Okay, so we got the frame of our box. Again, this is the hinge which will hold the lid on. This hinge was print in place. I don't have to do any assembly there. For now, I'm going to go ahead and insert the slats into the bottom of our box. And this textured side with the lines is going to go on the outside, or in this case, the bottom of our box. And not a big mystery as to how this goes together. You have, on the sides here, you have this groove, and you have a long, or a larger edge here. So that will just slide in there like so. There we go. So I got it to seat that time. What we'll want to do is add a little bit of 3D gloop on this edge here. And actually I was wrong. The larger edge actually goes over your bar here. So it's a little bit backwards on that. Again, no instructions here. I'm just kind of playing it by ear. But since this smaller edge will be held in place in the groove, I'm just going to add our 3D gloop to this side here. I try to use a minimal amount of this stuff. So we'll put the other slat in as well. We'll first test it. There we go. And then the center slat will just obviously set right into the center. We'll want to put 3D gloop on both sides. Now 3D gloop acts pretty fast, so I just kind of hold it in place for a few seconds. And again, it partially dissolves the plastic so that the two pieces will actually bond together. So the only way for the adhesive to fail is for the plastic to fail, which probably won't happen. Okay, so we have our floor in. These pieces are obviously going to be our walls all the way around. I'm not going to add 3D gloop all the way around. I'll just put a little bit on each side and push them in, and the gloop will hold it in place. So I'll just put, like in this one, a little bit on the top, a little bit on the bottom, because I really don't want to make a mess of this stuff. And then I will push it into place and let it hold itself in place right there. Now, as I'm pushing these pieces into place, you'll notice at the outside edge of the walls, there's this little lip here. So you want to push the pieces, these wall pieces, all the way to that. And again, you'll also want to make sure that you have your lines on the outside of the wall. Like this is the wrong piece for this place. If I pushed it in like this, it would fit, but that's not how it's supposed to be. This is the right piece. And you do want to work fast with these because that 3D gloop, once it gets into the plastic, it starts working fast. So you don't want to get your part installed part way and then have it stuck there for eternity. All right, so I got most of the walls in. I'm not going to put this front one in quite yet because there's another piece that's going to go right here, which is going to be this one. I want to get that in place before we do anything else. So again, I'm just going to add a little hint of 3D gloop. I'm actually going to put it on the inside right there and right there. Didn't get a lot there, but enough. and I'll push that down inside. So with that there, this one will go here. Okay, so for the most part, our box is done. We have these parts, which are similar to these parts that are going to go around the top here. We have 4 of them. We actually have 8 of them because similar parts will go to the corresponding corners of the lid once we get that put together. So again, these are going to go in here into these holes. And I'm going to open this hinge here so that I can get everything seated properly. And I'm going to switch to my nano glue, which is the same stuff, just in a smaller bottle. Okay, so our box is completely assembled, and now all we have is the lid. Now the lid is the part that I'm not entirely certain about, so we're going to kind of figure this out as we go. All right, so we'll glue these on here like this. I'm actually going to set this aside for a moment. So this peg will go in here, hold it in place. And then we got the other end here where we'll do the same thing. All right, so I've kind of got things in place here. If I open it, though, it's all going to fall apart. This beam is going to have to go through this center here. You're going to have to get creative here. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to put 3D gloop on the ends, and then we'll slide it through. We'll slide it through and then up into place. All right, got 3D gloop on. We're gonna try and get this thing in place. All right, now we wait for the 3D gloop to take hold and hope that it all stays together. Okay, so now with things kind of together to a point where it's not going to fall apart, I'm going to go ahead and put these feet on to our lid on these corners here. And of course, again, they'll only go in a certain way, so you have to make sure you get the right feet for the right corner. And these hole tolerances are really tight. All right, so I would say the hardest stuff is over. Gonna fit this piece in here. Make sure it fits before I add any 3D gloop. Yeah, the challenge right now is getting this onto that cross beam there. Maybe this will be easier if I look at it from the inside. There we go. All right, so everything fits. I'll just add my gloop. And it's all in position. I'll just kind of hold it there for a second. Make sure that it makes good contact. Then we got these end pieces for the ends of our lid. All right, so we have our box completed. Now we just have a few details here and there, like we've got our latch, which obviously will go here, and we'll hold it in place with this piece here, which will fit into that hole very nicely. So we just need to gloop it all together. So what I'll do is I'll just put a little bit of 3D gloop on the inside here of this hole, and then we'll quickly put this into place. We also have these pieces here, which will go into the ends here, and actually they'll go up like this. So they'll similarly just slide into place. We'll add a little bit of 3D glue to the insides of these holes. All right, those are in place, as is everything else. So we have a complete treasure chest. So let's take this back to the office and we'll discuss. So as cool as this is, there are a lot of problems in the process that I think could be refined. For starters, again, instructions on how to put this thing together. I would say too, if you're going to give us a 3MF file, maybe have all the plates and all the parts spread out across the plates properly, so and oriented properly so that we don't have to spend all the time to do it ourselves. I mean, you obviously had to do it to print it the first time when you designed it, so there you go. And along those notes, pay attention to your 90-degree angles, because you had some edges that were not 90-degree angles there, and they didn't set properly on the build plate in the slicer. Next thing, your hole tolerances. They were really tight and made it really hard to get some of the pieces put together. And I printed all of these parts on a Bambu Lab X1-Carbon, which has very good dimensional accuracy, and I calibrate them often to make sure that that stuff stays good. So yeah, keep your hole tolerances in mind when you're designing stuff. And I would say the last thing, now that I have the finished product, when I open it, these corner pieces, these inside corner pieces on the lid and the box hit, which kind of puts a lot of strain on these hinges, and I feel like if somebody opens that too quickly or too hard, it's just going to snap those hinges to pieces. And the lid will not rest all the way. Like if I had this sitting on a table, the lid would not rest on the table when it's opened all the way. So that's just a little design flaw, but overall, I have to say this really was a fun project, and all of my kids that see this, they walk in the room and they see this like, whoa! So yeah, really cool project. And there are other projects for this. I went to this designer's page on Thangs, and of course I'm going to leave links in the description, but I went to this designer's page and he has a lot of other piratey projects that I think I'm going to try to do. I'll even make videos about it. What the heck? I think the first thing, or the next thing that needs to happen is we need to make a lock for this. And the designer has a lock and key that would go well with this. So we'll do that in another video. But that's it for this video. If you like this type of content, please consider subscribing. And in case you weren't aware, we have a Patreon where we post our own designs. And you can there gain access to those designs and commercial license to sell physical prints of our designs. And we'll see you next time, but until then, fire up those 3D printers and make something awesome.